Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kostuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kostuba Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Kostuba, welcome back. Frolicking barefoot through Venice, eating gelato, kicking your heels together, singing all the Italian love songs. How was it, Kostuba?
Well, I suppose, there's nothing like Venice. I don't think there's any city like that in the world,
No.
Place is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I had one, I got there, rolled in there at about 2:15 in the afternoon on Tuesday, and got off the train and just kind of like walked to the information booth to try to figure out how I'm going to get to where I'm staying.
Yeah.
And they said, well, you go over there, you can take the taxi or you can take the bus. I'm like, okay. And then I get out there and I said, oh, I get it. The bus is a boat. The taxi is a boat.
Taxi is a smaller boat.
and then I hear this siren going on. It's around, oh, the ambulance is a boat. It's like, everything's a boat around here.
Oh, that's very
And
cool.
then I jumped on the boat bus and found my place and, took a shower. And I was just like, I was kind of tired and everything, but I was like, I got one afternoon and evening, I'm just going for it. And I just wandered aimlessly, Raghunath. Even like totally aimlessly, like I didn't know where I was going. I just wandered,
Phantasmagoria, looking around. How can I enjoy this world? Wow.
I was trying not to go there. I was trying to open.
You're trying like, this is spiritual.
I was trying to open myself up to learn something about life. That was my whole mood. I was trying not.
Good.
I don't know if I learned anything.
Learn anything in the gelateria?
If I learned anything, I hope it's not too cynical.
No.
But it's just that the tourists are not happy. It's like
they're not happy.
Yeah, it's like I think that must be the biggest tourist trap in the world.
There's a lot of tourists there.
I mean, it's like because. Like lots of places have like a few streets where there's all little shops and they got their whole touristy thing now. That thing is like just everywhere you turn and it's packed everywhere.
Yeah.
At the same time,
go with Americans.
A lot of Americans.
Want to see some Americans? Go to Italy.
A lot of them there. But at the same time, I wish I would have had a little more time, and because my computer was down, I didn't really do any pre-research, but to see the churches, to see the museums. It's obviously extremely beautiful there. It's a very special place. I got on a boat yesterday morning to go to the airport. You just get on a boat and get to see it all from a distance.
A boat to the airport.
Very special. I look forward to returning.
Was the airplane a boat?
The airplane was not a boat. Anyway, I'm glad I got a chance to see it.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe I'll go back another time and get more into it.
Well,
stunning. So much
you
of it.
Missed the excitement. Everything was flooded when I got back. Upstate New York was flooded.
Oh, as you turned into Venice over there.
Public transportation was flooded. You couldn't get upstate New York. You couldn't take Amtrak. It was closed because of the floods.
Wow.
Me and Mara, like, we questioned Google Maps. We're like, this isn't the fastest way home. We're going to go the fastest way home. I know better than you, Google. And then next thing you know, we were caught in the Taconic Parkway was flooded.
Were you able to turn around?
No, we just had to go ridiculously slow through deep puddles and basically.
Gotta be careful. You get stuck that way.
I know. I had my truck, fortunately. Anyway, we're back and we had a surprise. We had Prajum to do the last 2 shows, which was really nice. He is like a springing fountain of Vedic, not just Vedic, just metaphysical information.
He's not just a Sanskrit expert. In my life, I don't think I've met anyone with a more powerfully attuned brain for philosophy.
Yeah.
Meaning that he can understand things instantly,
And
like
he's still a thinker. He's still a reader.
Oh,
he actually came up to go to the Pumpkin Hollow, to go through their library.
He likes libraries.
He loves libraries.
Last fall, I think it was, I was walking, maybe it was even this year. I think it was this year. I was walking through Central Park and I ran into Prajuna Prabhu, and he's got some special books, and I'm like, what's going on, Prabhu? Where are you going? I'm going to this place at Columbia University. They got this library and they got this book that nobody else has, and I want to copy it and do all these things. And
he's excited. He's like a little kid excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was, he mentioned this, and I never heard this, but in the first Back to Godhead magazine, that's like the magazine that Prabhupada made. Prabhupada's first article was a message to the Theosophists.
No kidding.
Isn't that interesting? And he was a Theosophist. We were talking about Madame Blavatsky and the secret, what was it called? The doctrine, secret doctrines. And
that name, Madame Blavatsky.
I like Madame Blavatsky, and I like the secret doctrines. Ever try to read that book? That is like, or ISIS Unveiled. Ever read that one? You get lost with ISIS Unveiled.
I think if you just put the word secret in front of it, you're gonna get excited.
Yeah. So anyway, but we're in some great verses in the Bhagavatam.
Okay. Right. Do we have announcements today? I'm there. Yes. Here she comes.
Can I have a mic? We have back to recovery group meetings at let's see, 9:30 a.m. today, and also noon Eastern Standard Time. And tomorrow morning, asana class with Josh Kane at 10:30 a.m. for our Patreon members.
Okay.
By the way, one thing, my takeaway from our Italy retreat was these Sage group meetings really give people a lot of joy, a lot of depth, a lot of community.
You talk to a lot of people.
Oh my God, the Sage groups are beloved. So if you are in a Sage group or a Sage group leader, thank you. And if you're not, next round, make sure you sign up.
That'll be in
September. So yeah, I'm incredibly impressed. It's really changing people's lives because
Sangha, good association.
What was our realization about that association thing we had? Yes, association is everything. We get that, we say that, but we were around some people. I can't remember. We're like, you need good association. How do we get to that? Yeah, we were just saying how the people. It's really true. We say it a lot, but when you surround yourself by spiritually minded people, it just changes your consciousness. And in 1 second, you feel like, well, I got this. I can do this on my own. I'm going to do this with very careful, because we become like the community around us. And when you're alone, your community is your mind and your desires.
Okay.
And watch out.
Watch out.
So Sage Groups is really helping people, and it's really, really relevant. And we forget how marginal we are and how impressionable we are by the sights and sounds around us, and how many like sights and sounds are getting programmed into us practically without us even knowing.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's going deep. You want to talk about good association or good Sangha?
Yes, I do. Because
I stayed there in Vicensee in I heard that you were openly talking about it in the show the other day.
I thought was it the secret doctrine still, or was I allowed to talk about it?
I think you were at this stage, because it's kind of almost over. But after you left, I was there for a few days. Madhava Prabhu showed up. I don't know if you saw him.
And Vishwambar showed up.
And Vishwambar showed up. And one night, you know how they had kirtan every evening?
Mm-hmm.
So one night, I stayed. It was the only night I stayed for the whole kirtan from beginning to end. I just couldn't go. But Madhava led first. And you know how he goes.
Yeah.
Right? He gets
One
in his
melody
groove.
the entire time. You get sucked in like a
It was-
vortex, and you're just
And when everybody's into it, it just goes higher and higher and higher, right?
yeah.
And so then did you just share it? Somehow my screen just changed. I don't know if that was
That's
you that
weird.
did that.
Check.
Did that happen to you too?
No, yeah, you turned into a
Stream of
communicate
time.
with comments.
Yeah,
I
that
didn't
happened
do
to me too.
anything. Why
When I
did
get
everybody
back?
blame
Okay.
me?
All right. I'm back. You're back.
Yes.
Okay.
Raghunath must have done it. He's the idiot.
Well, that is the first. That is the default.
I do.
You know.
I do fiddle. I do
Yeah.
fiddle with keyboards.
So what was I talking about? This kirtan. Everybody was into
Kirtan,
it.
taking it to the next level.
So Madhava was going deep, deep, deep. Everyone's feeling unique.
What happened? Did anybody levitate?
Feelings. Everyone was levitating.
Really?
And everyone's feeling unique spiritual emotions, deeper than you normally feel, even in a good kirtan, And then he turned it over to Badahari.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I mean,
pass the mic to Badahari. Watch out.
Here's a human being that's just like, he doesn't have the issues that most of us have. He's kind and sweet and gentle and pure and an incredibly, if I had to think of someone who's like a real accomplished kirtan leader, but who has zero ego, just his whole. So he took it and he kept it in the mood of Madhava Prabhu. He went into a similar kind of melody and just kept it going and kept it going and kept
Very
it going.
difficult to get the mic passed to you from Madhava and expect to keep it high.
He took it and he furthered it, And then at one point he switched into a melody that I'd never heard before. Raghunath, it was so divine. I recorded it too. I can play it for you later. Because he sang it twice, with response. And I said, oh my God, the tears are starting to well up in my eyes. I'm like, I've never heard something so special as this. And then I hit the click button, and right then he nodded to the violinist, Barshana. Have you talked about her?
No, she's amazing.
She's a devotee, young devotee. She's in her 20s, I suppose.
Yeah.
And she looks like she could be 20. She must be a little bit older, but
she looks like she could be 14.
So her and her sister are both very experienced classical musicians, but she is like not even the number. Like Vienna is like very much a center for the classical music historically. And she is not only like the first violinist, she's actually the soloist, like the top violinist. Is it in the Vienna Symphony?
She says she spends her life in airports because she's always on tour. I said, oh, what orchestra do you play with? She goes, I'm just a soloist. I just go around as a soloist.
Wow. And so, Raghunath, I was sitting next to her on the boat, because we did 2 of those kirtan boats. We did another one again, where you just get on that raft, that flotilla, whatever
they have this big flat. Imagine a totally flat raft.
Yeah, just like a deck.
A deck, basically a floating dock. A floating dock.
Yeah.
With a bunch of prasadam on it.
and the best kirtan leaders in the world.
Yeah.
And you're in the most beautiful lake where you can drink the water.
Yeah. We kept on getting encouraged to drink the water. I was like,
I drank a little. I said,
are you sure there's a lot of fish in this water?
No,
I'd hate to just drink a fish.
Any case.
I've never eaten a fish, but I drank one.
Okay. But next to her playing, oh my God, it was a totally different instrument. I never heard anyone play it with such ease.
Violin sounds good with kirtan too.
Oh, she was so good. So anyway, Badahari nodded to her and she started playing that melody. And then he switched it over and gave it to Achyuta Gopi. She started singing. by the end of that kirtan that night, you know, it was like between the two of them, it must have gone on 2.5 to 3 hours, something like that.
Hmm.
And the whole thing, just in this gentle but steady way, with just growing power, just kept increasing, so that even a person that's honestly relatively dull to the experience of the power of these mantras, even I felt like this penetrated my being in a way that I was very grateful for. You know, good Sangha.
You like sitting in a kirtan or standing?
Both.
What's your favorite?
Well, at a certain point, you want to get up and dance, right? But
one day I'm going to make like an
nice.
exercise video to kirtan, like a workout, kirtan workout.
Right.
You can have slow stuff where you're doing like crawling on your hands.
That's fine, as long as you temper your Richard Simmons mood just a little bit, because that will bring the kirtan down. Should we get into a little nugget territory?
Yeah. I didn't know we had a nugget today. I thought you were the nugget.
Well, we can kind of play with this, but quite a few people, and we discussed this a little bit when we had Ananta Govinda on the show a few days back, but he recommended the book to me that I've been reading, right? And several other people, Champak was reading it, and one or two others were reading it. The book's going around a little bit.
Yeah.
And this is a book by Rick Rubin called The Creative Act, A Way of Being.
Yeah.
I'm telling
you. I downloaded it, but I did not listen to it yet.
Okay, I think you should listen to it. It's the kind of book where I'm taking notes. I'm highlighting things. And I'm highlighting a lot in it, and here's why. I think he's not an ordinary guy. I mean, look at his career, right? If people don't know who Rick Rubin is.
Well, I know Rick Rubin he was in a avant-garde punk band called Hose. And I saw them when I was 16 years old, and he was probably 17 years old.
Okay, I didn't even know that.
You didn't know he was in Hose?
No.
You don't remember Hose? They were just like they were on the scene. They were on the scene. They were weird. They sounded like Flipper.
Long Island or something? Oh man.
No, but then when everything shifted and Youth of Today, I'll give a little bio right here. When Youth of Today started getting big, he started producing. And the first thing he produced was Run DMC.
Run DMC. So now Run DMC, that was like...
You gotta understand, rap back then was sort of like Kool and the Gang and Sugar Hill Gang. You know, but Run DMC sort of did define it, but he added like a hardcore guitar, like a distorted guitar to it. And it blew everybody's mind, attracted a whole new audience. Me and all my friends were totally into Run DMC when those first singles came out.
When Run DMC came out,
it was like
it took over the streets of New York in a way like nothing had before.
Nothing had done it. That was 1980, 85.
3 or 84?
84, when the first Run DMC came out. And then he blew everybody's mind because he's from the hardcore scene. He knew the Beastie Boys, which were like a hardcore band like us. He took them and turned them into like the biggest. It's like one of your friendly hardcore bands who's sort of like, okay, and made you into like rock stars. And it was like, what?
It's funny you say that, because one day back then I'm walking down Waverly Place with John Joseph, which is a lot of what we did. You'd walk between Washington Square Park and Tompkins Square Park back. Right. So I'm walking down the street with John Joseph, and we bump into Rick Rubin, who I didn't really know who he was at the time. But John just said, hey, this is the guy that's going to make the Cro-Mags famous. I remember that.
That would have been a good mix.
Yeah.
And then,
so
wait. Then it goes on. He does the Beastie Boys. Then he does Danzig, Glenn Danzig from the Misfits. So it's like everything he was touching
was like gold.
Was turning to gold. Yeah. And then he did LL Cool. No, he did LL Cool J first. It was unbelievable. So he was incredibly in popular culture. He was an incredibly influential, successful. Then I didn't hear anything from him, but I stopped following. In '88, I became a devotee, and I just dropped off the map of popular music. But for years later, then I heard he got into kirtan. He got really into kirtan and lived in Los Angeles. So
and he's done so much. I mean, he's even done stuff in more recent history. Like he would take an artist like Johnny Cash, who's...
Oh, really?
You don't know about that?
Did he do the remake of the Johnny Cash on Interscope? I'm living 20 years.
He
ago,
did.
by the way.
He took Johnny Cash and had him do a whole, years after. I don't want to say Johnny Cash is ever washed up. He's an icon, but like he hadn't put out a popular record in decades.
Right.
And he took him and he chose songs for him to do. So he did like a cover, like a cover record of all covers. And kind of, he did a 9 Inch Nails song, that song. I think
Johnny
it's called
Cash
Hurt.
did a 9 Inch Nails song.
Yeah, I think it's a song called
I live in
Hurt.
a hole.
And when you hear Johnny Cash, yeah, it's called Hurt. And when you hear Johnny Cash sing this, because Johnny Cash can reach into all of the pain in his life and sing a song like that in a way that's just totally unique, and his voice carries so much.
It's almost like we need these artists to go into pain just for our benefit.
It's true.
Please suffer for us so we can relate.
But here's the point. What is his job? His job is to help artists be creative and to tap into creative energy that even they may not be able to tap into, He's not necessarily the artist himself, but he knows how to get an artist in a place where they're becoming more creative. And as I'm reading this book, again, the book is called The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. It's interesting. And you mentioned he's into kirtan, and I know he's into meditation and things like that too. When I'm reading his book, I'm seeing parallels between what he's saying and what texts like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are telling us. There's a strong parallel where he's saying that the creativity, the artist in the act of creativity is perceiving things that most people aren't perceiving, is tapping into noticing things and tapping into things and feeling things that may be going past everybody else. And they're taking them deep within, and then they're sharing them or communicating them in a unique way. So he's saying the creative act has a lot to do with getting a lot of the garbage out of your mind, you could say, and becoming, getting a lot of the distraction and the disconnection from what's wondrous and amazing all around us and being able to feel it. And when I'm reading this, I'm saying this is just very parallel to what our teachings of Bhakti Yoga are like, right? That we have a mind full of all kinds of attachments, all kinds of misconceptions, all kinds of unhelpful sentiments, years and years of conditioning, lifetimes of conditioning that leave us distracted, leave us disconnected, so that we're not perceiving God within our own heart, God within nature, God everywhere, and feeling anything. So he speaks a lot about how to try to be more perceptive, and different exercises that he uses, but I'm seeing constant parallels. So I thought maybe I could just read a little something.
Yeah, please. We got.
You want to share something?
I'm sure we're like one step away, one person away from getting him on our podcast.
Yeah, we could try.
Right?
We could try.
Okay.
I know people that know. Okay.
Read it. Please.
So this is from a chapter that's entitled Inspiration. Right? And he says, the word comes from the Latin inspirare, meaning to breathe in or to blow into. Right? For the lungs to draw in air, they must first be emptied. For the mind to draw inspiration, it wants space to welcome in the new. Okay, and I like the way that he's going, because I think we talk a lot about on the show, a lot of the fundamental ideas and practices in the yoga tradition, like say renunciation, something like that, right? Or even like simplicity, the value of living a simple life, not accumulating too much. This has a lot to do with opening up the space, right? It's not the renunciation as a goal in itself, but the value of renunciation or the value of simplicity is that it gives room, within our minds. He's saying for inspiration to come. We would say to feel the presence of God, to feel the presence of Krishna in your mind, in your thoughts, in your heart, to see, to perceive. He says, he says this. He says, to create space for inspiration, we might consider practices of quieting the mind. And he lists meditation, awareness, silence, contemplation, prayer, any ritual that helps us fend off distraction, right? And he says, breath itself is a potent vehicle to calm our thoughts, create space, and tune in. It cannot guarantee that inspiration will come. And I like this. It cannot guarantee that inspiration will come, though the vacancy may draw the muse into play. And I think that's kind of some of the patience that we need to approach our spiritual practices with, right? That let me do all that I can to create the space for God to enter, you know, for Krishna, for Radha and Krishna, enter into my heart. Let me do that through. Yeah.
It's sort of what sadhana is. We're creating space for God to enter. It's sort of what catching your mind, untangling the knot of resentment and anger and revenge, to create space for God.
Yeah, like all of the, you could say the recommendations or the regulations that are part of a sadhana practice, right? Sit in a quiet place, sit with your back straight, you know, go off into nature, step away, don't watch your you know, like,
you know, sit down in a solitary place. Yeah.
Or even like how we live throughout the day, you know, what am I consuming with my mind? All this, you become conscious of it. Yeah.
When I said it, I think I was wrong. Sometimes I just say things and don't think about them. But as I was saying, I was realized actually it's not our sadhana. It's all the things we do to prepare for sadhana. Like, controlling the senses, controlling the mind, having a peaceful mind, you know, getting rid of resentment, anger,
who we associate with,
who we associate, what we read. And then during sadhana, that's the invitation.
Exactly.
And Krishna can come in then.
And, you know, our great acharyas, you know, the great teachers in our lineage, they say, like, you take, for instance, our sadhana, our spiritual practice of chanting the Mahamantra, which are the names of Radha and Krishna. Our acharyas say that actually it's not just vibrating the sound. Just vibrating the sound Krishna may not manifest, or we may not perceive, or we may not be receptive to him being manifest in those syllables. And so a lot of, you know, the sadhana is trying to get to a place where we will perceive him in that mantra. So when he says, you know, he's talking about calming the mind, calming thoughts, creating space. And he says, it cannot guarantee that inspiration will come. Like when we sit down to chant Mahamantra, we can't guarantee that we're going to feel Krishna's potency when we chant that mantra. But he says, though the vacancy may draw the muse into play. So in other words, but these attempts, this sincere endeavor to live the right life and develop the right habits and the right sentiments and the right conceptions, you know, it's our endeavor to say, Krishna, I'm patiently waiting for you to please mercifully manifest to me. I'm doing what I can to create space for that, and I'm begging you to please manifest in my mind and my heart. I'll continue to chant this mantra even if I'm not feeling that, hoping for the day when you will reveal yourself to me, you know? So and so he's saying the artist is thinking like that. I think, and to me, it ties in to what we were discussing with Ananta Prabhu about that, in one sense, that certain artists tap in to say, actually, my creativity, my ability, it is not mine. It is coming from somewhere outside. It is just another way of connecting with God. You know. Anyway, I've enjoyed them both.
It sounds good. Sounds great. All right. Well, we are diving in today to Srimad Bhagavatam. When do you say we start with our mantras?
Let's do it.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati tamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord whose praise with transcendental songs will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Gyanat Tamarandasya Gyanan Janasilakaya Chaksurun Midatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. You know, I'm really appreciating the Bhagavatam lately. I'm really appreciating the sort of like the
Did Pradyumna stoke a little something in you?
who?
Your association with Pradyumna Prabhu, did that kind of kindle a little?
Yeah, yes, it did. Also, there's a really nice devotee couple here staying at our house. Mukunda, who's a filmmaker, and Madhurika. You know them? They're cool.
I believe I did meet
They
Mukunda
have
at the
two
Bhakti
kids. They're
Center a
friends
few
with
years
my
back.
kids. We have 6 kids, 6 Krishna kids staying at the house right now.
Oh.
7 with Rocco, and so they're So anyway, we're just talking, and it's just the corner that me and you and Mara have painted ourselves into. We can't really get out of this.
We're
People are
stuck.
expecting the podcast every day. You know, it's very often that you get the Bhagavatam set. It stays on your shelf and you never read it. It
Right.
happens to a lot of nice devotees, you know.
Maybe
And
most. Maybe most.
It happens because
It's
life
natural.
life happens. And it's not like the Bhagavatam is going to jump out and knock you on the head. You know, it's like you have to actively say, nope, today is the Bhagavatam. So it's creating an accountability that is so necessary for me because we tend to drift to material nature. So I'm appreciating this right now. I was so tired, just like an exhaustion today. I was like, all right, Bhagavatam, here we go. But and I guess this is what we do in life. We set up these sort of, with our sadhana, we set up these things that we have to do. You know, it sounds like, oh, it's so forced. It's so unnatural. Yeah, it is forced and unnatural because you have unnatural desires. That's the real unnatural thing. It's like getting addicted to cocaine. You think, yeah, it feels so natural to snort cocaine. Yeah, because you're addicted to it. It's not natural. You created a horrible addiction. We've created a horrible addiction to materialism. And the Bhagavatam, which is actually soothing, like a cool pond in the summer, it seems so foreign to us. So we've created these, quote, unnatural things that we have to do until we develop a sweet taste for them.
You know, not that it's exactly the same thing, but it kind of relates to. But on all my flights on this trip, you know how they put that screen right in front of you, you know?
Yeah.
But I just said I'm just not gonna watch any junk, and all I watched were like educational things, and I was taking notes on them. You know, it was all like relevant to my service.
Well, you know what? I watched the second Avatar, which is a very good movie.
Okay.
I've watched that. I'm not a movie guy, but Avatar is a great movie, and that sequel is very good. Go on.
I was just watching stuff about writing or about speaking publicly. I watched TED Talks. I watched different things, and I was taking notes, and I was getting good stuff, you know?
Good for you, Kastub.
It felt really good.
Listen to TED Talks on the plane. Do you remember when we were brahmacharis? We didn't eat anything, and we didn't watch the movies. That was being a brahmachari.
Yeah.
And I remember flying to India. Nope, no movies. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Felt good. Right?
Yeah. Then you like changed ashrams, and you're like, all right, I can watch a movie now.
I was gonna say anything. All right. You ready?
Krishna. Ashram life. Ready? We were on Canto 5, Chapter 19. We were doing text 13. You know, text 13 has got interesting purports too. Text
I thought you did 13 and 14. I thought you had done yesterday.
Did we do 14?
Mara?
She says yes, but okay.
That's what she wrote in the notes.
Okay. I mean, you might want to read it again.
If you want to read it again, whatever you want to do.
He's talking about 14 is interesting. Materialists are generally very attached. This is 14.
This is Narada speaking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Materialists are generally very attached to their present bodily comforts and to the bodily comforts they expect in the future. This is us. Therefore, they are always absorbed in thoughts of their wives or husbands, children, and their wealth. Like, this is like what makes life. This is the joy of life. What's the joy? The joy of life is not, you know, your motorcycle, your sports car. It's your family. right? This is the things that we think of as actually enjoyment, and it is enjoyable. It's a very high, hopefully a refined level of enjoyment. And we're afraid of giving up our bodies, which are filled with stool and urine. This is like
Throw that in there.
the Gyani's way of observing, your
Yeah.
sexy body that you think is cool, that you just, that you put in the makeup on, or you're like getting your hair done, or I'm getting my pedicure, whatever. It's just a bag of what is it? Of foul stuff that we were so obsessed with. If a person engaged in bhakti and Krishna consciousness, however, is also afraid of giving up the body, what is the use of having labored to study all these sacred literatures, the Shastras?
Good point. That's
It's
a
gonna be a waste of
calling.
time.
That statement is a calling to don't just, even if you are engaging with Bhagavatam, so get off the superficial level, get on the self-transformational level. This has a purpose. You're meant to realize the self. When you realize the self, you become fearless. And if you're not getting there, you get more into it, like do what you need to do so that you actually begin to transform.
Yeah. I talked to a very nice lady. I'm not going to mention her name, but she's going through a hard time right now. And she's just said, you know what? I said something, sorry you're going through a hard time. And she says, you know what? Hearing the Bhagavatam every day is like, help me frame out this hard time in a way.
We hear it so much.
It helps me in such a way. And so, this stuff it can't just be a religion or a club or a robe. Now I wear a robe, and I'm part of this new tribe. We don't want you to wear a robe. We don't care. You can, or you cannot. We don't care. You can shave
wear
your
something.
head. That's okay. That's cool.
don't just take the robe off.
You can put on a sari. You can get a Krishna tattoo. That's okay. By the way, Linda got a Sharanagati tattoo. Did you see that?
That was her. Yeah, I did see
her.
that. Well done.
Well done. You can get the tattoo, but more than the tattoo and more than the robe and more than the sari is we actually have to understand that nothing is ours in this world. Not even our family, not even our wealth, not even our home. I'm thinking like Rick Rubin.
No, you're thinking like Narada Muni, because the next verse gets into the aham mameti, the I and mine consciousness.
Yeah. Therefore, O Lord, this is text 15, O transcendence, kindly help us by giving up the power, giving us the power to execute bhakti yoga, so that we can control our restless minds and fix them upon you.
Okay, so that's talking about what we're talking about with Rick Rubin, right? I need help being regulated in my life. I need help letting go of things that have become attached to my life so that I can fix my mind upon that focus, right? I need to create space within my mind, and it's hard. So he's praying to Lord Vishnu, please help me execute this practice of creating space so that here he says that I can fix my mind upon you, the way Rick Rubin was saying, so that muse may arise, right? So that the focus of my inspiration will become prominent in my mind and my heart.
We are all infected. I love that. By your illusory energy. We're infected by Maya.
Like a virus.
Therefore, we are very attached to the body, which is full of stool and urine. Let's bring
you
that
don't
up
say.
Again.
You don't say.
It is sort of, it's just like every day. There is a tiny bag of stool and urine at my doorstep. It is my cats, as sweet as they are, as wonderful as they are.
Oh, they hunt for you.
They're hunters, and they decapitate bunnies and squirrels and rats and mice and just leave their carcass and their guts right on the doorstep. And, it's the least, I'll even take a body and throw it away, but they leave the guts right there. It's so foul. Guess what? That's us. That's our body that we're like working out and trying to get. We are just a bunch of guts in there.
We try to put a positive spin on it, but if we had within us any current realization of what it is like to be in a spiritual form, we would feel disgusted by what we're in right now. It's such an incredible downgrade.
It's an incredible downgrade. I hate to be one of these like devotees who are like cynical about the body.
You got to be a little
you
cynical.
have to be a little cynical, or else you
Two
get
ways to look at it.
swept away with the body. Like, oh, he's pretty hot, or he's pretty ripped, or because everyone's trying to sweep us away. All these YouTube videos, it's amazing how YouTube knows exactly who I am, and they know exactly how to advertise. And they're all these guys on YouTube ads that look like me. Hey, check it out. Here's a special herb. Hey, you're in your 50s and you're not working out yet. You should look like this. It's like they know everything about me, YouTube, and they're pitching this stuff to me, herbs and erectile functions, and like how to grow your hair out, and like how to trim your beard, and push-ups for guys in their 50s, and
yeah. These bodies. Someday we're going to realize this body was a bad bargain. Right? But let's use it. Let's make the best of a bad bargain. That's what we're being taught.
Yeah.
But when we finally get there, we're going to realize, oh, there's such a better alternative.
There's a better alternative. We have a spiritual body that we got to identify with.
Okay. Continue, Raghunath. This is a good verse.
Continuing on, except for devotional service, there is no way to give up this attachment. Interesting, huh? Right. Because in the yoga system, there's different ways. You see these yogis do sort of like horrific things with their body to develop detachment, or they submerge themselves in freezing water to develop you develop a type of if you take cold showers, and everybody's into cold plunges now, you develop a type of detachment, but it's not a lasting it's a type it's definitely healthy. It helps you separate yourself from the mind. Fasting can do that. Cold water plunges. There's even hot things yogis do. Like not hot yoga, but like they,
sit in a ring of fire
in a ring
under
of
the sun.
Yeah. And so they torture the body to develop detachment from it. But here it's saying that this is the way to actually do it. Your consciousness gets absorbed in sweet Krishna, and then like nothing's the same. Then the body becomes secondary, just becomes a vehicle for moving you around.
Right.
Instead of the identity is the self.
A lot of these practices, right, that even people that, there was a time, right, when people thought of India, before there was all this cultural exchange with India. Like if we go back to when we were young, like the early 70s and something like that.
Yeah, India was looked at as all these freaks doing contortionism and
bed of nails, sleeping on lying down on a bed
that
of nails.
That was what yoga was. Oh, you're sleeping on a bed of nails.
Yeah. And now you don't even hear about that. But back then, that was like
bed of nails anymore. What happened to all of them? I thought I was going to go to India. It's like everyone's sleeping on beds of nails. Nobody never saw one bed of nails.
Or
the guy who hangs like something, a weighted stone from their scrotum. Ever see that? That's like
that came around later.
That came around later. Okay.
Or a person that stands on one leg and leans against
that still happens.
Yeah,
that still happens.
Or a guy that puts his arm up in the air for 15
still
years.
Happens. The guy keeping their hand up in the air for 50 years. Yeah.
Okay, so why do they do that? My understanding is, like, why would a person, they got their arm up in the air, they taken a vow, I'm not going to put it down. The nails are growing all along. And the
Christians must have thought, like, this is so nuts. These guys are so, let me help these guys. Let me give these guys Jesus.
Right. So, but here's the point. What they understood was that I've been controlled by the programming within my mind lifetime after lifetime. And when I put my arm up in the air, it's not long before my mind comes along and says, this is uncomfortable, put the arm back down.
Right.
And I'm going to defy, with this one act of defiance, I'm going to show the mind I'm no longer controlled by you, right? Even the mind starts to scream, put it down. I'm going to continue to hold it up. And in this way, it's like all yoga. The focus is always on gaining control or gaining power over the mind, which otherwise is controlling us, right? And so here what's being said, and I like the way that you kind of got into, Raghunath, is we can do that. We can kind of defy the mind. But here it says there's no other way to give up this attachment other than devotional service. Devotional service, when Prabhupada uses the term devotional service, he's translating the word bhakti. And with that, we should understand all that term carries. Because the term, when we hear devotional service, try to concentrate on the devotional end of that and understand what's being conveyed is he's describing divine love. That would be another way to say the same thing. That when divine love arises in the mind and the heart of the yogi, it's one thing to give things up and show the mind who's boss and hold it down. But when divine love arises in the mind and the heart of the yogi, not only have you conquered the mind, but all of those attachments for whether it be like for material pleasure, material comforts, or even the more subtle things like prestige and so on, all of it becomes right down to the very root, gets burned away. Complete. If that's what devotional, other practices of yoga can be like say you have a weed, you can pull the weed and leave the root in, and it appears like, oh, there's no weeds in this garden,
Right.
but because the roots are there, the weeds will just, they're there. The weeds are still there, and we'll see that they're there with time. So many
Imagine
of these
realizing this. Imagine reading this verse after 50 years of putting your arm in the air. Like, oh, man,
well,
I should have just read the
hopefully,
Bhagavatam. Now I've got this one skinny arm.
Well, hopefully
Right,
by
that's what happens. They get like
holding the arm in the air, you've created the space where now you could chant the Maha Mantra and be fully transformed.
Well,
why have to go
why
there?
do I get the benefit of reading the Bhagavatam now with two normal-sized arms, like equal proportion arms?
That's called mercy. That's called mercy.
It's mercy. I didn't deserve that. He deserves it more than me. You're gonna walk around with your hand in the air for 50 years. Give this guy bhakti yoga.
Somebody give this guy some bhakti yoga.
Me walking around the hardcore scene thinking I'm cool, and I get the Bhagavatam. That's mercy. I did nothing to deserve this.
Okay. Now,
matter of fact, we should make it a rule. If you want to listen to the podcast, you hold your arm in the air for 1 week. Then you can listen to the podcast. You think you can just scroll through podcasts? Oh, I'll pick this one. No, you got to earn wisdom of the sages. 1 week, hand in the air.
I'm not sure if that'll be good for our listenership. I think there might be a rapid decrease in our listenership. Not sure.
I can see Freya Foray Rooney with her hand in the air at work.
She's a
Cheryl Mervine, Rick Lesher, Henry walking around with their hand in the air. Everyone's like, Freya Foray, why is your hand in the air? You guys have a question? No, I'm just getting ready for a podcast coming up next Tuesday.
But let's look at some of the language here in Narada's verse that he's chanting. Okay.
Yes.
He says, Tvam Maya Yaham Mamatam. So Twat Maya means your illusory energy, right? He's praying, he's saying, you've got this powerful illusory energy. It influences us. How does it influence us? Primarily, it's saying that we're walking around, Raghunath, and there are unseen forces that are entering into our mind through our senses, subtly adjusting the way that we perceive, subtly adjusting the way that we feel. Well, how do we perceive and how do we feel when the illusory energy has taken root inside us? Aham mameti, right? It says that aham mamatam, the conception of I and mine, a false conception of who I am. I am this body. I'm a man. I'm a woman. I'm black. I'm white. I'm American. I'm this. I'm that. That conception. You say that to most people, they're going to say that's the real world.
That's the what?
Actually, that's the real world. Like you can talk about all your yoga stuff or this ephemeral stuff, but the real thing is I am a man. I am an American. That's real. It's perceivable. It's right here. The yogis are saying, no. You're just on this external surface level and you're seeing that as the reality. But actually, if you just zoom out just a bit, you'll see that that's gone in a moment and you continue. So clearly you're not a man. Clearly you're not an American. Clearly you're something else. Can you define what that is? Bhagavatam saying we can define what that is. That's a spark of spiritual energy,
right? And their worth. I mean, it's really drilled into people like you are your worth, your net worth, your savings, your
beauty, your strength,
and we think
influence.
like, I'm secure. I have savings. I'm secure. And in a moment, we get some diagnosis that says, you know what? Yeah, it's over. And then it's like that can't even protect me. I can't even get that worth I've been saved. That can't even give me the comfort I need. It's like that's over now. I'm not that. My whole life I've been cultivating that. That's my security. Krishna's our security. Krishna's our hope. Krishna's our shelter. And it's by the recipe of material nature that when we have this information, as the material world starts to rip these false concepts of security out of our hands, out of our mind, giving us only Krishna as hope, that's when we start realizing Krishna was right the whole time.
It's so
he was
true
there for me this whole time.
and
I was
yet
taking shelter of Krishna and my Platinum American Express card. I was taking shelter of Krishna and my kids are me, and my political leanings were this way, and my country is this. And they're saying, we feel safe in America. American could flip in a second. Cultures flip in a second. You could be feeling comfortable and strong, and this is the property line, and my neighbor better not build his garage on my property line or whatever, put up that fence there. And the next thing you know, we could be grab your stuff, run for your life. We're getting invaded, and
can
it
happen
happens
at
all the
any
time.
moment.
Huh?
It can happen at any moment.
Any minute, collapsing.
Now, Chapuji has shared a little something from the commentary here. Okay, you ready?
Yeah, Meryl's giving me that look. Huh? He's talking about society collapsing again.
Oh, yeah.
It's 6 a.m. We're talking about society's civilization collapsing.
Okay, just hear this out, Meryl.
What's up with Chapu?
Here's the commentary from Prabhupada. Nirmama. All right, we should all be familiar with that. Nirmama. There's aham mameti, right? I and mine, but then nirmama, which is kind of the opposite, means that a devotee does not attach much importance to the pains and trouble pertaining to the body. Right? That's a great mental accomplishment, we could say, right? That means we've gained control of the mind, where generally our mind would go into woe and worry and complaining and so on. The devotee doesn't attach much. It doesn't say that they're not unaware of it or that they're, but they don't attach much importance to the pains and trouble pertaining to the body, because they know perfectly well that they are not the material body. They have to know that, and they have to know it perfectly well. Right? They do not identify with the body, and therefore they're freed from the conception of false ego, and they're equipoised in happiness and distress. Right? I can maintain a steadiness as a witness. Witnessing the sun and witnessing the rain, witnessing the pleasure, witnessing the pain, without being too much affected by it, right? They are tolerant and satisfied with whatever comes by the grace of the Supreme Lord. This is a true yogi. They do not endeavor much to achieve something with great difficulty, working really hard to try to get something I think is going to make life better. I think then I'm going to be finally happy, but when you get there, you're still not happy. Therefore, they're always joyful. They are a complete, perfect mystic because they are fixed in the instructions received from the great spiritual masters. And because their senses are controlled, they remain determined. They're not swayed by false arguments because no one can lead them from their fixed determination in bhakti. They're fully conscious that Krishna is the eternal Lord. They've created the space, right? That equal-mindedness, that peace in mind has created the space where you can really finally feel this inspiration, right? This thing that most people aren't perceiving. Fully conscious that Krishna is the eternal Lord, so no one can disturb me. All these qualifications enable them to fix their mind and intelligence entirely on the Supreme Lord. That's the yoga we're practicing. Right? Beautiful. So much in there. Take a chuckle.
Guess what? It's time, my friend. It's time. We did it. We checked in with Lord Krishna and the Srimad Bhagavatam. Congratulations, everybody here on Zoom that's listening. Make sure you're sharing this with friends, right?
Tell a friend Thursday.
Tell a friend Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, we want some takeaways, Miss Mara.
What you got?
Yeah. Miss Mara's like, can I play the game too? Yes, Miss Mara, you can.
All right. The Italian tourists are not happy.
No,
Italian to us.
Well, I should say the tourists in
the
Italy.
tourists in Italy.
Yeah, the Italians are great. They're loving life.
Italians probably are happy.
Italians are really happy. They're just walking around laughing, smiling. Okay.
They get emotional though too, Raghunath. You know,
Oh, yeah, they get emotional. They get
they
heated.
commit some crimes of passion.
Yeah. You want to talk about? We should have it. I listened to a podcast called Crimes of Passion, by the way. Mara forbids me. She says it's not good for my consciousness, but it's not. But it's very interesting podcast. Crimes of Passion. Just putting that out there. Maritime Daily. Okay.
Untangle the knots of revenge and anger and control the senses to create space for Krishna.
Okay.
Mara is my governor of like what I'm consuming. She sees me like she sees my consciousness slip away into various animal attack videos, boat fails.
She's like, this is not good for you.
Yeah, she's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you listening to? What are you?
She's got to get a little stronger.
Not in a naggy way, in a loving way, but a little naggy. not naggy at all.
Back to our takeaways.
Yes.
Get off the superficial level and get on the self-transformational level and become fearless.
Nice. Okay.
Get off your phone.
Yeah. We don't care if you
tells
wear we don't care if you wear a robe and get a Krishna tattoo. Understand nothing is ours.
Even your tattoo. When I first got a tattoo, I told my mom because I was already devoting, I think.
What was the first one? That
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya bracelets.
On your
yeah. And my mom says, "Oh my God, you got that for the rest of your life." I said, "Mom, it's temporary." She's like, "What do you mean it's temporary? It's a temporary tattoo?" I said, "No, my body's temporary."
Yeah.
Okay.
Make the best of a bad bargain. Identify with the spiritual self.
Make the best of a bad bargain. I love that phrase. That's a good T-shirt.
Totally.
Your false security will be ripped away. Take shelter of Krishna.
We are intoxicated by Maya.
And just take the mercy of the Bhagavatam.
Okay.
Take the mercy. Merciful Fate. That's actually a nice name, actually. Remember Merciful Fate? It's like a metal band.
I know the name, but I
Merciful
don't know
Fate.
the
I never
music.
listened to them either, but I just started saying the word right now. Merciful Fate. It's actually a nice devotional sentiment. Your fate is merciful.
Yeah,
Merciful.
one way or another.
Merciful fate.
It's always Krishna's mercy.
It's always Krishna's merciful fate for us. Thanks, everybody.
Mara,
Thanks for joining
can you
us.
do the description today?
Sure.
Maybe I'll give you a title.
You guys having a private conversation publicly? No.
I don't have my computer. You know.
No, I don't.
At the end of every show, you're like, "Oh, what are you doing today, Kastuba? What are you up
I know
to?"
that's part of the show. Look at Road Rage sitting there banging his head. Oh, at the office. Look at everybody. You guys. You're my people. You are my family. You're my dysfunction. You're my functional family. Actually, you might be my dysfunctional family if I was to really get to know all of you. I look at them all as my functional family, but I think my regular family would be functional if I kept them 4,000 miles away on Zoom. They'd be functional. They'd be all a bunch of dented cans and train wrecks. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Please share this episode with people. Please share this podcast. Let's make this stuff grow organically. You want to serve the great acharyas, right? Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya. Serve the great devotees by spreading the message of the Bhagavatam. It's the medicine that everybody needs right now. Nothing's going to save us in this world except there is no material solution to our material problems. There's a spiritual solution.
There is no material solution to our troubled evolution.
Material solution.